to Dishing About Food, a 4-part audio series transporting you into the kitchens of cooks, chefs and restaurateurs from all over the world who've made their home here in Northern Ireland. It's a celebration of the contributions different people and cultures have added to the local food scene, which has itself transformed over the past decade. You'll hear about the history of different cuisines and the stories of our brilliant food entrepreneurs. I'm Karishma. I moved to Northern Ireland in the 1990s and it's been my home ever since. As well as my day job as a designer and podcaster, I'm also a massive foodie. And if you're listening to this, you probably are too. I love discovering new restaurants on Instagram, experimenting with new recipes, and I'm also fascinated by the other elements to food businesses, the innovation, the design, and the people. We recorded these conversations in the summer of 2023, and between then and now, our guests have added even more accolades to their businesses. Listen to the end of each episode to hear about their latest projects and, crucially, how you can sample their food. Street food is becoming increasingly popular here in Belfast, bringing together flavours, cultures, and the community. In this episode, we get to know Kubo's Nallaine and Chai, and learn about how love brought them to Northern Ireland and their passion for Filipino food.
Hi, I'm Nallaine. I started Kubo, which is a Filipino food business in 2020, just at the beginning of the pandemic, really. And it's been going strong since. We just kind of started as Kamayan boxes, just little Filipino feasts that we were giving out to people, and it just kind of grew from there. So it's been a lot of fun.
Hi, I am Chai. Actually, I started Kubo 2021,
yeah.
Yes, and the Hill Street Hatch.
Yeah.
So basically, we were like a customer of Nallaine prior to that, and then my husband messaged her, and then that's the story began. And then from 2021, and here we're together.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you both met then. You were saying that basically you were initially Nallaine's customer and then you became friends, or how did that happen?
So I'm a housewife and stuff. I mean, basically we live in London and then move here, and then pandemic came, and then during pandemic I said to my husband, I really, really want some Filipino food. And my husband said, there's no such thing here in Belfast. And then I just look around and Google things, and then voila, there is a Kubo, and they do Kamayan, and I was so excited. They ordered, and we ordered a couple of stuff with them as well. And then my husband sent her a message stating that my wife is a Filipina. If you need help, she's a great cook, yada, yada. And then Nallaine messaged me. She asked me if I'm interested. I was taken aback because I don't know what to say. I had a conversation with my husband. It's like, why did you message her without me knowing? And he said, he said, well, you will never do it. You will never approach her or something. So I'm grateful to him because, of course, without him, I wouldn't be part of Kubo.
I got that message from her husband, and at the time I was still working as a home business, and even through Hill Street Hatch, I was a home business, but I did need help for the Hill Street Hatch, so that's when I took Chai on board, and it was just sort of, it just clicked right away, and then we just started talking about other ideas and other pop-ups we could do, and we just kind of flowed really, really well. Since then, just become a really integral part of Kubo. She's so much more organized than me, which I'm just like, yes.
You need that kind of balance, don't you, between a business partnership 100%. And friendship too.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell us a bit more about Hill Street Hatch for people that don't know anything about it or haven't been to it whenever it was up?
The whole idea behind Hill Street Hatch was to help starter up businesses and small businesses and kind of get these new ideas out into Belfast. So before me, you had Toast Office, which absolutely boomed in Belfast. I've never seen queues like Toast Office in my life. So the idea of Hill Street Hatch was really to help small businesses, and it propelled us. It really, really did. It helped Kubo go from, just a small business working from my house to, all right, so now Belfast Telegraph is picking up articles, but more than that, it put Filipino food on the map. It made people curious about Filipino food what's the difference between Filipino food and other Asian cuisine.
So I'm just going to ask you a bit more about how you came to Northern Ireland in the first place and what was the food scene like when you first moved here?
Well, I've been here 2018 first, just to traveling, not like moving. I live in London, so the food scene in London is just vast. It's just, you know, everything you can think of, it's there. So when we traveled here for a holiday, as like I told my husband, it's a bit food-wise, it's just not too much. Like, it's just limited. That's the word he uses. My husband is quite limited. But I said to him when we went back in London, there's so much potential. There's so much potential. But I don't know at the time how many Filipino people lives in Northern Ireland. I don't have a clue. Then when we moved during pandemic, it was difficult for me because you can't go out, and I only know few restaurant and been to few places, so for me it's quite hard to tell. So when the pandemic not really ended, but when things are start opening up, there are new things coming out, like Nallaine, her business are from home. There are other people's have like home businesses because people lost their job and they don't know what to do, so they start doing business at home. So then it flourishes, the food scene and everything. So I think it's just getting better from after pandemic, really.
Yeah. So for me, I actually moved here. It was 2018 as well. I also lived in London, so I moved from Toronto to London, and I met my partner while I was traveling. So I think a lot of the expats that live in Northern Ireland are here for love.
Yes.
You're here for love. I'm here for love. Like all of my friends that are, actually the majority of my friends are expats are here for their partners as well. So that's really what brought me here. And then I worked over at the Bullet Hotel upstairs when it used to be Babel. And then I was just missing Filipino food too much. Like when I lived in London, you know, you could just kind of go down to Earl's Court and get some Filipino food. But like, I was like, I can't take this anymore. I was like, so I went to my boss and I was like, can I please hold a Filipino event? So we did a Kamayan event. So essentially, you know, the tables were dressed with food, with Filipino food, and they had invited all these bloggers and these tour companies and all these kind of high profile people in Belfast that I didn't, you know, I was still sort of new to the city, so I didn't knew who they were, but I didn't realize they were going to make it that big of a thing. So the event sold out, and I think that's when it clicked for me that there was a market for Filipino food, there was an interest, and there are people who would be interested in Filipino food. So the idea sort of festered just in my head until the year after when the pandemic started. And yeah, just as Chai said, I'm not the only one who had that idea as well. Like so many businesses came out of that pandemic. Even where Kubo is situated now, the majority of the vendors down at Trade Market like started as home businesses. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, like during the pandemic as well. Yeah, this was pretty cool.
And I feel like the stars have aligned since you both moved here in 2018, both for love, you both lived in London. I feel like there's so many things that have really connected you both together.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of connection there. Like, I was surprised as well. Like, honestly, when we were working a lot, especially in Banana Block November time, that's a time we worked together more. And it was the full November. We start working together, just me and her. I think it's the whole month.
Yeah, it was the whole month.
We're doing dinners and lunches and stuff.
Yeah.
So there are people actually, she knows this, like, it was like, where's your sister? Like, what? Is your sister? Like, no, it's a typical thing, especially for like regardless of their nation, they probably will think just because we're the same height or similar
Filipino that
they think you're related. So even for Filipinos, they actually think we're related, and no, we're not.
And honestly, I just say, yeah, she's not here.
We're just like, oh, she's not here, she's on a day off, or you just
we're just like, yeah, she's not here. Yeah, seriously, yeah,
she's just not here.
Yeah.
So basically, I know like working with a friend is difficult, but I feel like it's more like she make things more like a family, like, you know, Like Filipino businesses, even back home, they treat their employees or whoever. It's run heavily by a family. I guess that's why we clicked.
And the fact that we did both move here without anyone, like we both don't have our families here, right? We both moved here for our partners. We both didn't have any friends in Belfast and Northern Ireland. We knew nobody but the people we moved here for. I think that was the main thing that really brought us together, that we leveled on outside of even what Kubo was, just as human beings, as people. And then as Kubo grew, then our friendship circles
grow and stuff, like it become more deeper and such. Then meeting her mom and stuff, like there's like a little connections here and there that you don't know. So it's quite nice, and it's very, you find solace, like, oh, like it's hard to make friendship at this age and time. It doesn't matter, like if you're in the same country, it doesn't mean you're gonna click. So it's quite difficult, but at the same time, it's lovely.
What does Kubo actually mean?
Kubo is basically like a bamboo hut. So you would see kubos everywhere in the Philippines, especially in the farmlands. It's basically a shelter just made out of materials like bamboo, straw, and they're just shelters really for like farmers to rest, take cover. But obviously a lot of families will have kubos as homes as well. In Toronto, my dad actually built a kubo in our backyard. So that kubo in Toronto has been the spot where we've had so many Filipino parties, like family parties. I've had my friends over and we've barbecued, a couple of little house parties here when my parents weren't home. And like that Kubo in my backyard has just been such a special place over the years. And whenever my friends and I, or even my family and I, we look back on memories, we're just like, oh, remember that time in the Kubo when like this happened? Oh, remember in the Kubo when you passed out? Like, so, there are just so many memories in that Kubo. And the fact that my dad and my grandfather built that to recognize their homeland, it's just so special all around. And it just made so much sense to name the business after something that was so near and dear to my family and my friends. Like it just there was no question about it.
It's just connected. Her story, the way probably she thought about it, Kubo, it does make sense. But if you think about it, I said earlier, it's a hub. It's a home. It's a home for everyone. So yes, it's just well connected, really.
But I was going to ask you as well, it seems like there's a lot of community within Filipino culture as well. Within the food side of it, you were talking about the Kamayan feast as well. So can you tell us more about that side of it in terms of sharing food? Is that a big part of the culture? Do people come together regularly, or is it more for special days?
It's not a special day, it's every day, really. It's like an everyday occurrence in a Filipino household. Yes, they might not do it on the banana leaves and stuff, but essentially the whole thing is an everyday lunch, dinner. People eat together. When we were growing up, we must sit together, eat together. So that's the Kamayan is for. It's not just eating with your hand, it's actually gathering, sitting together, eating together. My mom will get angry. Why are you not on the table? You have to sit on the table. We're eating, no TV. It's essentially for talking, and
dinner time is family time. Like that's like that was
food is
the rule.
family time.
Yeah, like turn off the TV, like stop doing your homework, pause your homework, come downstairs, set the table. We all eat together as a family, and that is the whole point of the Kamayan. That's what we love about it as well, because like what we love seeing is not just people immersing themselves in the Kamayan and eating with their hands. Like Kamay means your hands, to eat with your hands, but the fact that they put their phones away,
because you have to use your
you have to use your hands. There's no, like, none of that. You're sitting with the people that you're sitting with, and you're conversing, you're talking without having to sit there sort of just on your phone
or an iPad or whatever you need to do.
We love seeing that,
because that's an everyday occurrence in the Philippines.
So right now we're doing the pork humba. So pork humba is basically braised pork belly, and it's flavored deeply with soy sauce, like dark soy sauce. My mom would use dark soy sauce. And then the aromatics would be garlic, star anise, and cloves. So once it simmers away, it actually gets darker and the flavor just becomes really, really intense. And then you hit it with a little bit of brown sugar and some vinegar, and then it just evens out all the flavors. Yeah.
And it smells amazing. It is aromatic with all those aromatics.
It is, and the thing is too is with Filipino cooking, it's very. The way I usually explain it is the ingredients are very simple. Ingredients are very easily accessed, and it's very, very simple. Put them together, you almost don't know what's in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a marriage of flavors.
Oh, and there's bay leaves in here as well. Yeah. Bay leaves is one of those flavors as well. Whenever let's say you put it into like a stew or you taste it, but you wonder what it is. Like it's meant to sort of complement and be like a back note, but it adds so much depth to the flavors of the dish.
It's sizzling away as well. It's like, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It smells amazing.
So right now it's the pork is braising, but then the liquid is also reducing, and then that gives it a really nice viscosity, like the liquid to it. So you have really tender pork, but then you have a nice sort of thick, saucy, reduced, like it's just over garlic rice.
And is a lot of Filipino cooking then based on the hob or on fire? Is it more that way rather than oven and grill based? Or
No, it's quite. We use everything, to be honest. But traditionally in the Philippines, like if you go to the Philippines, you'll see a lot of grilling, a lot of stewing. So the method of stewing actually came to the Philippines via the Spanish when the Philippines was being colonized by Spain. And then a lot of, like, let's say pork lechon, which is roasted second pig, we would actually dig fire pits and roast the pork over like fire pits. So a lot of very smoky flavors when it comes to that as well. A lot of grilling and a lot of stewing.
And is there any seasonality to it? So would different things be cooked at different times of the year?
Well, in the Philippines, it's warm all the time. So I guess in the Philippines it would be when vegetables come into season. And then in the summer, well, really, really hot ones. Obviously, they're grilling a lot. They're outside a lot. But for us, like for me, growing up in Canada, obviously we have proper seasons. Mm-hmm. So my family would cook dishes depending on the year. So my parents have green thumbs, so they do a lot of gardening. And my dad would plant a lot of like okra, a lot of longboard, so we call it upo, and bitter melon as well. So in the summer, you'll see a lot of vegetable cooking and a lot of dishes that require tomatoes because they love growing tomatoes, and my parents' tomatoes, there's just something about them. So yeah, you'll see a lot more like mungo, which my parents uses like mustard leaves and bitter melon leaves, right? Which they harvest from their garden. And then in the winter, they'll be stewing a lot, just a lot of hearty comfort foods. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like in the Philippines as well, it's actually really incredible to see all these ingredients and all these produces that you don't really, at least in Northern Ireland, it's very, very hard for us to find, let's say, calamansi. Yeah. So for me to find calamansi, I would have to either plant it myself or I would have to order calamansi juice.
I was going to ask you, what are some of your best sellers? Because I'm sure you have quite a few dishes now on the menu.
The barbecue, that's like the main star of our home. Yeah. Ever since it started, we've done a lot of things as well that's been equally good and people love it. The next thing is the chicken.
Yeah.
I mean, we love our barbecue so much, but when we put out the chicken, it just overtook the barbecue.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a fried chicken. Like when we first started at Trade Market, we didn't have Filipino fried chicken on the menu.
Yeah.
So the barbecue was the star of it.
Yeah.
And then now we have the barbecue and the chicken. They're just the two best sellers.
They're competing with each other
Yeah.
too. I mean, the fried chicken, yes, fried chicken, but it's a fried chicken that we used to eat at home.
And what kind of ingredients go into that fried chicken? What makes it different? And
So we call it Jolly Chicken, which is a play on Jollibee, the
yes.
Filipino fried chicken brand. It's just our way of making that connection. But ours is actually gluten-free. So we use a combination of potato starch and corn flour. Actually, about 80% of our menu is gluten-free.
Because there is inasal thing back in Philippines. It's made, the sauce is actually based in a barbecue or grilled chicken, but you could also use that sauce for the fried chicken. So it's like the annatto seed, that's the main component, lemongrass and all those things. Those core ingredients, just the sauce makes the fried chicken more flavorful. Not just, fried chicken is good on its own, salt, pepper. But
It's always the sauce.
It's always
yeah.
the sauce.
Yeah, we make this like sticky lemongrass sauce and we infuse it. We're gonna say everything that goes into it, but it's basically it steeps for a long time, so it really pulls and infuses the sauce. So it's really nice.
heavily marinated, gets all those lovely flavors in.
Yeah.
It sounds very tasty.
It is really, really good. Yeah, and the barbecue as well is. It's very, very near and dear to us. Like the marinade is my mom and dad's recipe. And then the pineapple banana ketchup we've actually developed over time. I made that pineapple banana ketchup when I first started Kubo. And then just over the years, I'm just like, we're going to tweak this. And now we're just at a point where we have the recipe right.
Yeah.
Like we marinate that barbecue for over a day. So it really, really gets in there, and then I'm so hungry.
I'm getting hungry too.
the barbecue sauce is actually, obviously I'm not gonna dive into what goes in there, but it's like there's a core ingredients, right, in every.
Yes.
It's basic to any Filipino barbecue, and then you add your own
spin to it. Yeah.
So that's what Nallaine did. The ketchup, the banana ketchup, is actually a staple in Filipino household. You could buy the jar and stuff like that. But if you want to use the barbecue as for like out there, modernize it and stuff. So obviously you put your own flair and just make it better and better.
Very interesting. I was going to actually ask you as well in terms of sourcing those ingredients. Has it been easy enough to find them locally, or have you had to really discover them?
Very, very difficult in Northern Ireland. Like for example, calamansi, which is like a citrus fruit native to the Philippines. It's like this tiny, tiny, tiny looking lime. It's kind of split between like a lime orange and a kumquat kind of thing. It was really, really hard to find that. Actually, you still can't. So I found a really good supplier. So I've had to sort of outsource that outside of Northern Ireland. But everything else has been all right. Things like green papaya now are starting to come up more regularly. But yeah, it's been difficult enough. But now that there are other Filipino grocery stores that have a lot of vegetables and fruit, it's been a lot easier.
Have you had any links with local food producers in terms of maybe growing some of those vegetables and fruit that you need for cooking?
Yeah, there's actually been a few local like farmers and that I've been in contact with to see if they could, like any of the calamansi that I've gotten in the past, any of the calamansi that I use personally, I always save the seeds. So I'm just like, what can we do with these? Can we grow them? Do you know what I mean? So we're definitely trying. We're on the road to doing that. Brilliant. And there have been so many amazing like local farmers that we work with already. Anyway, just outside of Asian vegetables and ingredients.
It just shows that Filipino food is adaptable to what resources you have in a certain country. Of course, there's loads and loads of Filipino ingredients that we cannot get, or if we can, they're very expensive to get. So we have to use local ingredients and local produce for our food, which is actually good as well, because you are supporting the community in Northern Ireland.
Since we recorded the original podcast, Kubo had a high-profile visitor in the form of TV chef Rick Stein, who had never tried Filipino food before and shared a Kamayan feast with the Kubo crew. Earlier this year, Chai left Kubo after being part of the core team for the past 3 years. Nallaine continues driving the Filipino food movement forward through collaborations, festivals and pop-ups, and she's currently based at 32 Shaftesbury Square, also taking pre-orders for Kamayan feasts. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Dishing About Food, a collaboration between WhyFi Productions and the Curated pod. This episode is one of a 4-part mini-series, so do make sure you listen to the others if you haven't already.